YouTube vinyl community, Elton John fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about Elton John's 1970 classic Tumbleweed Connection, released here in America on Uni Records. This album is absolutely fantastic. It's one of his best, if you ask me. It's something that I kind of forgot about, and then I put it on again, and I've been nonstop listening to it. It's one of those albums that captures you. It brings you to a mood. It brings you to a place. It's definitely a journey of an album. It doesn't necessarily tell a story per se, but it's more like vignettes of like the Old West kind of a thing. So this was Elton's third album, his third within 2 years. Coming out right after his self-titled album. So in the States, that had come out, and Your Song was the big single, and that had been a big single during the time this thing was released. So a lot of people, I think, bought this album thinking it was on it because the back cover has no track listing on it. So, if you were around in 1970 or 71, you may have heard Your Song, but I gotta go find that. Oh, this is the new Elton John album. It's gotta be on here. So maybe they picked it up. I don't know. On the back of the Elton John album, it's listed with the song title. So I could just be completely full of it. But anyways, this album is a little bit of a departure from what he had done with the first couple albums. Particularly with the second album, where there's a lot of orchestrations going on. This one's kind of scaled back, mostly as just a band effort. There's definitely orchestra bits on here, but not as heavily of an influence, I'd say, as the previous album. This album didn't spawn any singles either, except for New Zealand, where Country Comfort was a single. But in America and the U.S., America and the U.S., which is kind of the same thing, America and the U.K., it was the same thing. It was no singles, just the full album. You went to the store, you bought the album, this is what you got. It's a fantastic album. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily tell a storyline, but it definitely gives you glimpses into the old-timey American West, as they were really influenced by groups like the late 60s Byrds, which were doing country stuff, Dylan at that point with Nashville Skyline, and New Morning, and John Wesley Hardin, so there's a lot of country-ish stuff from Dylan, and they were really into Bob Dylan at this point anyway. Bernie Taupin introduced Ellen to a lot more of Dylan's stuff. The band, they were really into the band. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I mean, there was a lot of Americana-ish stuff going on at that time. So it's going to rub off on them. And of course, being British, a lot of the British groups were inspired by what was going on in America anyway. So there was just a correlation between the two. It just happened. All the British groups in the 60s were influenced by Motown and stuff. So it's just how it goes. And so, Bernie has always been massively influenced by America and just kind of fascinated by it. And according to Elton John, still is. So there he is on the back cover, hanging out back there. There's Bernie. Love this album. Absolutely love this album. The first song, Ballad of a Well-Known Gun. This is what opens the album up. And apparently when Elton and Bernie and the whole group of guys came over to America for the first time on one of their first tours, they bumped into Dylan, and Dylan even said, "Hey man, I love that song, Ballad of a Well-Known Gun," and it's kind of floored him. It took him back, like, holy moly, like, Bob Dylan likes our song. This is sweet. This is a really cool opener. It kind of sets the tone for the album. Overall, it does have a good bookended feel. Like between this and Burn Down the Mission, there's definitely an opening sense and a closing sense, and they both kind of bookend with that same energy. But this thing opens up with some good country guitars, really tight drums, and Elton's really soulful piano playing, as you've come to know at this point. He's an amazing pianist. The overall groove of this song, like I said, does set a tone for the album, but you're also hearing something that you haven't heard him do before. So if you had picked up the first two albums at this point, this probably was like, whoa, this is a kind of different thing. There's some like kind of crunchier guitars going on here. This is pretty cool. But really imaginative storytelling from Bernie, as is usual. But on this album in particular, they really go somewhere with a different era, a different region of the world, and kind of exploring those themes of what they would have probably seen watching John Wayne movies or something, Old West movies from the 30s. It's a story about a fighter who's tired of running from the law and eventually gets caught and kind of just gives up. It mentions the Pinkertons, was that law group that was, around at that. I think they're still around, but, at that point they were kind of big, spy agency really, coming around looking for this guy. But hell of a song to start off with, really gets the mood going. Second track on here, Come Down in Time. This a complete departure from the first song. It's definitely a tender, more acoustic kind of song. Elton's vocals are really smooth and articulate in his delivery, which I really enjoy. And the stand-up bass is cool. You can really hear the neck, the fretboard on the stand-up bass, which is kind of fun. The string arrangement on this one is really rich, and for me, it sounds like something that would have influenced Sean Lennon for his Friendly Fire album. It really has that sort of vibe that Sean captured on the last couple of songs on the Friendly Fire LP. But yeah, the string section alone could stand as its own song. It's definitely got something that George Martin would have done with the White Album, where it really could just be its own track. So yeah, pretty fascinating song. Country Comfort, like I said, a single in New Zealand. I forget if it charted at all. Can't remember, but a song about average, everyday life. You know, your day-to-day kind of stuff, and it harkens back to the days of the 1840s, 50s, and 60s with the Industrial Revolution and how machines were coming in, taking away work of actual people. And and it mentions in the song this replaces 15 humans. This machine can do the work of 15 people, and it's taking jobs away. So it was one of those things where, like, yeah, it's making life easier, but we're out of work because of robots doing this now. So it really captures that country western movie feel. The slide guitar on the chorus is fantastic. The overall feel of the song is warm and kind of homey. But yeah, I mean, talking about aging and everyday living, working for a living, it really encompasses that, like, you're walking down the dusty road, you're seeing life on both sides of the street, there's kids playing, there's people opening their blacksmith shops, there's the barber, there's the banker, there's this kind of everyday life of old school America. Son of Your Father, this is like an old school western shootout kind of song, where the two people aren't just using their words like grown-up people and they're shooting each other like idiots, but that's the Old West for you. So the lyrics really drive it home in that last part where it's like, this is a warning, like, use your head. Musically, this song rocks along. It is damn catchy. It really bounces along, and it's one of those things that shows off Elton's group at this time. Well, in particular, this album is mostly, session people, but Nigel and Dee do show up on backing vocals throughout this album pretty often. So yeah, I really enjoy that one. And then My Father's Gun, the last song on side one, is a song that grows and grows and grows. And the build-up on this track is amazing. I like the tension, I like the soul and emotion in Elton's delivery. The catchy chorus, I mean, this thing is, "Step us a rope," I mean, it's fantastic. The lyrics are pure poetry. This is one of those songs that stays in my head a lot. The bass bounces along well. I like the cymbal work on this track in particular. It gives it sort of this forward movement thing. And the piano playing is just super tight. It's one of those things where Elton's known for being an amazing piano player. This is it. Track one on side two, Where To Now, St. Peter. This kind of has like a bit of a psychedelic vibe to it, only because of that wah-wah pedal. Like, it's such a foreign instrument to this album that, while this thing doesn't sound like it was meant to be, recorded in the 1850s and musically sounding like that, it's stories about old school stuff with, modern technology being used to do it. This is like the only song in the album that kind of branches out of that and has a different tone to it with the slightly-ish, wah-wah-ish pedals going on here. But it's an interesting song lyrically. It's about, from what I can figure out, it's about a soldier ascending to heaven, and when he gets there, he asks St. Peter, "Hey, where do I go from here? Like, what's the path? Like, which road do I take? Where do I go?" Cool imagery on this one for sure. Love Song is the next track on here. Not written by Bernie Taupin. But I love the guitar on this track. It's just Elton and a guitar. It's amazing. The playing on this track is just so beautiful, and it really creates a whole different vibe. A lot of people don't like this song, but I think it's one of the best on the album. I think it's fantastic. The background vocals, the voices blending together, the harmonies. It's a great addition to this LP. It takes the idea of what a love song could be and kind of turns it on its head a little bit, because it's almost like, real true love will be there for you through thick and thin when things aren't so great or when things are awesome, and, that day-to-day life kind of stuff, not just starry-eyed dreamer sort of stuff. Amarina, this is his actual band. There's Nigel and Dee are actually on drums and bass here. This is great. It's funky, it's bouncy, it's super catchy. It's definitely an album highlight for me, especially coming off the previous track, which is just acoustic. This thing bounces like full on, man. I love the lyrical imagery again on this thing, the tenacity of the band attacking this thing. Elton's voice nails it. This is a great track to play live for the guys. It just really comes alive, and it's definitely a standout on this album. Talking Old Soldiers definitely has that somber, late night vibe. really dimly lit bar, cigarette smoke everywhere. It's the story of two old soldiers reminiscing of the old days when they were either fighting each other or on the same team. I can't figure that one out. And all the people they lost, all their friends that are gone, and how there's a great line how your best friend is a graveyard. What an amazing line. And how you're just never going to see these people again. But it's just Elton and his piano. It's extremely moving. It's a very slow-paced song, but the passion that Elton puts in his voice on this one really drives it home. Fantastic song. And then Burn Down the Mission. What a freaking closer, man. I mean, it's a story about a guy burning down the place where all the rich people get to hang out and eat and live a peaceful, easy life. And this guy who's poor, struggling to feed his family, decides, I'm going to burn this place down. Screw him. Stick it to the man, dude. Except he gets caught, and then, subsequently, his mission kind of failed. But, yeah, it's just an amazing song. It shifts musically so often to these, fast-paced, bouncy piano rolls. The drums are cranking along, and it shifts back and forth to slower parts again, back to the fast parts, and then just cranks out all the way out into the fade out there. But it's just a joy to listen to. It rocks, it rolls, it's full of soul. It's Tumbleweed Connection, man. And that's it. I mean, absolutely bloody great album. And the packaging on this thing is fantastic. So here's the whole fold out. Here's the whole picture, front and back cover, and some great shots on the inside of the guys. There's Bernie and Elton there. And the booklet it came with is fantastic, too. They did a great job, just a knockout job with this, too. Old school text, the imagery, the black and white, sort of sepia-toned setup here, but it's got the songs listed at the bottom. Who plays what on the back, which is great. So on Love Song, it's Leslie Duncan. I couldn't think of her name before, but she plays the guitar and backs him up vocally on that one. And like I said, Dee and Nigel appear as background vocals on several of these songs. Caleb Quay plays the electric guitar on a lot of this stuff. He was in Bluesology with Elton, so that's kind of cool to have them on here together again as well. But a great shot of the trio there. Let me go through some of the pictures here. The drawings are cool too. Country Comfort. Here's the guys inside a train. Couple more nice shots of the guys. And it's nice having the lyrics here too, because they are just pure poetry. They're absolute poetry. Giant pistol. Ballad of a well-known gun. And this last bit is great too. It sort of looks like an old yearbook or something of everybody who was associated with the album. So you got the main people, the producer and the arranger. I think it's great. You got Gus and Paul down there. It's pretty cool. And then everyone who played on it, which is great. I'll show you the record here too. I don't have the original inner sleeve. It's just on a white, boring sleeve, but here you go. The old Uni label. A lot of people might recognize that with Neil Diamond in the early 70s. But there you go. Fantastic album. This is while Elton was still kind of getting his feet wet, really, in terms of not writing for other people, him and Bernie just writing for Elton instead, and really getting the hang of what it means to be a singer-songwriter. I mean, the critics were just lauding them at this point as being the next Lennon and McCartney, especially after Your Song came out. What an amazing track. But this just continued the flow of him really showing off his strengths and becoming an even better musician, and Bernie becoming an even better lyricist. They just worked and worked and worked and worked, and made some fantastic music together. I mean, after this, you get stuff like Honky Chateau, and then eventually Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and then at that point, things became more flamboyant on stage with the crazy outfits and all, becoming Elton John, which is great, and it's really cool to see the transition, because it happened so fast. He had this confidence in him to be like, yeah, I can play, and I got great songs. I'm gonna go on stage where whatever the hell I want and have a great time with it. I think it's awesome. But to see him this young in his career, really jumping in, getting his feet wet, proving himself, before all that sort of started happening, is pretty darn cool. So for this album, easily a 9 out of 10 for me. This thing is absolutely fantastic and one of my favorites. This thing's really caught me. And someone wrote on the back cover there. I'm not sure. Maybe it may have been from a radio station or something, but this album is available on cassette and 8-track, so go out to your stores and find this on vinyl, cassette, and 8-track. And that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been Elton John's Tumbleweed Connection 1970, and yeah, 9 out of 10. Fantastic album. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.